about, Jesus had died prior to this, and they had crucified him, and they had taken him to the tomb, and they had laid him down, and he had resurrected. Now, listen as we follow through this, because we have limited time, and I'll try and go fast so that we can be able to conclude in good timing. It says that on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, the women took the spices they had prepared and went to the tomb. They found the stones rolled away from the tomb, but when they entered, they did not find the body of Jesus. And so while they were wondering about this, suddenly men in clothes gleamed like lightning stood beside them. In their fright, the women bowed down with their faces on the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, he has risen. Remember how he told you that while he was still with you in Galilee," so he quotes here Jesus, "the Son of Man must be delivered over to the hands of the sinners, be crucified, and on the third day he will rise again." So they remembered his words. And when they came back from the tomb, they told of all the things to the 11 and to all the others that were assembled in Bethlehem. Now, we know this story. The women went there, and Luke outlines who the women were, and we know what happened. They went there expecting to take care of the body of Jesus. And lo and behold, they had an encounter with the angels. And sometimes this is why I like giving women credit. When they had an encounter with Jesus, upon the angels talking to them, they had a revelation. They were quick to have the revelation, and their minds were open. And so they went back. If you read the story, they went back to Bethlehem and Jerusalem and met the 11 and told them what they had encountered. Now it is interesting as we read down, as we move, I want us to move down to chapter 36 to see what happened to the disciples. Now I want you to remind you, before we get to chapter 36, verses 36. Now if you read 24 in between the line, you'll find that before Jesus joined them in 36, he met some of the disciples on their way to where? Who remembers that story? To Emmaus. And what happened? As they were walking, he gave them what? He gave them stories. He gave them good revelations. He gave them things that they were amazed, and when they had reached when they were almost where they were supposed to be, they were like, who is this who gives us this kind of interesting stories? How can it be that you know all this? And so the Bible says, he opened their minds, he opened their eyes, and they were able to understand all the prophecies that he had done what? He had given them. So this was not the first encounter that they were having with Jesus. Because they had talked to them, they had opened their eyes, and he had given them the revelation. But now see what happens when we read from verses 36. And this is the story that talks about Jesus appearing to the disciples. So that while they were still talking about Jesus, himself stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." They were startled and frightened, thinking they saw a ghost. So he said to them, "Why are you troubled, and why do doubts rise in your minds? Look at my hands and my feet. It is myself. Touch me and see. A ghost does not have the flesh and the bones as you see I have." When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while still did not believe it because of the joy and amazement, he asked them, "Do you have anything to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he took it in their presence. He said to them, This is what I told you while I was still with you. Everything must be fulfilled that is written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms. Then he opened their minds so that they could understand the scriptures. And he told them, this is what is written. The Messiah will suffer and rise from death on the third day. So really, brethren, what I'm talking about here, what I'm trying to put forth so that we may understand, is that we see the disciples who have had an encounter, who have seen